Take a deep breath right now. Go ahead, actually do it. Feel that air rush in. Here's something you probably didn't notice. One of your nostrils just did more of the work than the other. Not equally. One side is quietly doing overtime while the other one relaxes. And every few hours, without asking your permission, they swap jobs. You've been doing this your entire life and never once felt it happen. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why that happens, how your nose actually works from the second air touches it, and a few habits that keep this whole system running the way it should. Let's get into it. The second air enters your nostrils, it hits security. Tiny hairs called cilia catch the big stuff first. Dust, pollen, whatever random particles were floating around, stopping them before they ever get deep enough to cause trouble. But the real work happens just past that, inside three curled, shelf-like structures called turbinates. Think of them as your nose's climate control system. As air rushes over them, they warm it up. Cool outside air gets heated to nearly body temperature in a fraction of a second. And at the same time, they humidify it, boosting it to around 95% moisture before it ever reaches your lungs. Your lungs are extremely picky. They want air that's warm and damp, not cold and dry. And your nose handles that entire adjustment automatically, thousands of times a day, without you ever thinking about it once. While all that's happening, a thin layer of mucus lining your nasal passages is quietly trapping smaller particles, bacteria, viruses, allergens, before they can go any further. It sounds gross when you say it out loud, but that slimy layer is genuinely one of your body's first and most underrated lines of defense. You breathe roughly 20,000 times a day, and every single one of those breaths gets filtered, warmed, and humidified before your lungs ever see it. Now, back to that nostril thing from the beginning. It's called the nasal cycle, and it's completely real. At any given moment, one nostril is more open and doing more airflow than the other, and roughly every 2 to 7 hours, they switch. The open one narrows, the narrow one opens up. Scientists think it might help prevent your nasal tissue from drying out, kind of like rotating which side of a couch cushion gets sat on. Either way, your body has been running this quiet rotation your entire life, completely behind the scenes. Here's where your nose gets genuinely impressive though. Tucked way up at the top of your nasal cavity is a small patch called the olfactory region, and it's absolutely loaded, somewhere around 400 different types of smell receptors. Combine those in different patterns, and researchers estimate your nose can detect over 1 trillion distinct scents. Not a typo, 1 trillion. Compare that to your eyes, which distinguish around 10 million colors, and suddenly your nose looks like the real overachiever of your sensory system.
And smell doesn't play by the same rules as your other senses. Every other sense you have gets routed through a whole processing relay before your brain reacts to it. Smell skips that line entirely. Olfactory signals connect almost directly to the limbic system, the same brain region tied to memory and emotion. That's exactly why one random smell, a specific perfume, a certain food, the inside of your grandma's house, can instantly transport you back to a memory you hadn't thought about in years, way more vividly than a sound or a photo ever could. Your nose is also doing more work in your sense of taste than your tongue is, which sounds fake, but isn't. Your tongue really only picks up 5 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Everything else, the actual flavor, is mostly smell traveling up the back of your throat into your nasal cavity while you chew. That's why food tastes bland and boring when you have a stuffed up nose. Your tongue is working exactly the same as always. Your nose just clocked out for the day. So that's how it works when everything's running smoothly. But plenty of things can throw the system off. The common cold is the most familiar one, your body ramping up mucus production to trap and flush out a virus, which is annoying, but honestly your nose doing exactly its job. Sinusitis is next, when the hollow spaces around your nose get inflamed or infected, causing pressure, congestion, and that special kind of headache.
Allergic rhinitis happens when your immune system overreacts to something harmless, like pollen or pet dander, treating it like a threat and triggering sneezing, itching, and congestion for no good reason.
Some people also have a deviated septum, where the wall between the nostrils sits off-center, which can make breathing through one side noticeably harder. And nasal polyps, small, soft growths inside the nasal passages, can block airflow if they get large enough. Losing your sense of smell entirely, called anosmia, can happen too, sometimes temporarily from congestion, sometimes from other causes, and it's more disruptive to daily life than people expect, since smell is so tied into taste and even mood. The good news is your nose is pretty easy to take care of. Staying hydrated keeps your mucus doing its job properly instead of drying out and getting thick and uncomfortable. A humidifier helps a lot if you live somewhere dry or run the heat constantly in winter. Saline rinses can clear out allergens and irritants if you're congested, and they're genuinely one of the most underrated cheap fixes out there. Avoiding smoke and strong chemical irritants protects that delicate mucus lining long term. And breathing through your nose instead of your mouth whenever you can is actually a big deal, since mouth breathing skips that entire filtering, warming, and humidifying process altogether and sends your lungs air they really weren't built to handle directly.
So next time you take a breath, just remember, there's an entire climate control filtration system running inside your face, silently swapping nostrils, trapping germs, warming and humidifying every single breath, and somehow detecting over 1 trillion different smells, while your tongue just sits there taking most of the credit. Comment below if you had no idea about the nostril swapping thing, because almost nobody does until they hear it explained. If this helped you understand your own nose a little better, share it with someone who complains about their allergies constantly. They'll appreciate knowing what's actually happening in there. Subscribe for more of these breakdowns, because apparently every single part of the human body is doing way more than it ever gets credit for. This video is for educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. So if something feels persistently off with your breathing or sense of smell, get it checked out by an actual doctor.